What is up, HLTV fantasy enjoyers? The streak continues as we do yet another fantasy league, and we're trying to keep ourselves in that top 5 contention, maybe even top 3 spot. But Group C and D did not go great for us. We had a really good start. We were in the top sort of 20% for a while, and we just slipped and slipped and slipped away as Ents continued to fall down the edge of a cliff. And this team is in trouble, man. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some roster changes. It's just not working out for them at all. Goofy nearly proved to be a really good pick. Still 40 points. And most fantasy leagues, honestly, you get 40 points and everyone on positive, and you're laughing. You're in the sort of the top 15, top 20 contention. The problem here is that a lot of people went for double mouse and then went for double Na'Vi, and that yielded a lot of points. And so we kind of fell behind, even though everyone got bare minimum of 33 points, and we got tons between Jimmy and Exertion. Anyone that went for, double Na'Vi was laughing all the way to the bank, though, because Bit, Ema, Wonderful, JL, they all scored heavily, and Alexi got 33 as well if you whacked on the support. So it was a pretty rough one for me personally. So that now puts me into a similar position in terms of my overall standings on the leaderboard, but a lot has changed around me in the sense that the top 3 have really pulled away. So Lucy, Striker, and P2, they're all sort of like 20 plus points ahead of me at this stage. And also the middle of the pack players, they've managed to close the gap pretty considerably considering where I was before. So although I am only 1 point behind Blair, I'm feeling like I want to go for a bit of a gamble, a bit of a risk on this one. And the main reason for that is because of this playoff bracket being so wacky. So one of these is not like the others, right? The bottom one is stacked as all hell. FaZe, Na'Vi, Vitality, all in the same bracket is nuts. And obviously that means that some of the other ones are certainly weaker. And I'm looking at some of those teams and thinking, they may very well be worth a gamble on this one. So the fact that you have Mouse and potentially G2 to make it through to the semis, I think it's going to be Mouse, but maybe G2 can find consistency. Maybe Nico can start fragging before like the 25th round, and they'll be a real contender. They should beat Big. They should beat 3D Max. I don't see them beating Mouse right now, but who knows? They have so many star players and potential on that team. I guess you can never truly write them off, but I expect Mouse to make it here pretty convincingly. In terms of this one, I actually think VP have a real chance to slingshot their way through the playoffs round 1 all the way into the semis here. Gamer Legion, a good team. Don't get me wrong. Don't underrate them. Solid team, but VP have found their way. It feels like Electronic is betting his way into this team, and their confidence is building. Their performances are improving. And I think this is the perfect time to look at this VP squad and think, I might have a piece of that, because I could see them beating Gamer Legion. I can see them beating the Mongols. And I think that Complexity is a very winnable game as well for them, in all honesty. So the way this works as well, I should mention and highlight, is that any teams, and obviously the players for those teams, that have a bye, which means that they don't play in the first round, but they're waiting to find out who wins, they're going to get +6 points per bye round that they have. So if you go for a Mouse, Complexity, Astralis, or Vitality player, as far as I'm aware, and do correct me in the comment section below if I'm wrong, but you'll get 12 points before they even play. So you can play it safe in that regard. And obviously, if that team then goes all the way to the grand finals and wins, you're going to build a lot more points on top of that one. But if you go for a team that starts off in the playoff round 1 and goes all the way through to the semis and potentially grand finals, you are going to make so many more points. So the potential is much higher, but also the risk is higher too. But I think this VP squad can absolutely make it to bare minimum the semi-finals. And so I will be picking some VP players as a heads up, as a bit of a spoiler. On top of that, I'm looking at this FaZe squad. They've been a little bit off. Rops still hasn't found that level that we're expecting. He hasn't been the Rops of the start of CS2. Frozen may have gone off the boil just a tad, but Brokey's been consistently really solid. And this is a team that just always seems to perform in playoffs. They've made every single CS2 finals thus far in its iteration. This could be a bridge too far. It's a really stacked, bracket against them. Obviously, Na'Vi, they have a chance at a bit of revenge for Na'Vi in the grand finals of the major. They beat Vitality, but that was without Zaiwu going all guns blazing and just going crazy. But when you look at some of the prices of the Vitality and Na'Vi teams, they're very, very high. Like Zywoo's 240k, I think. And that's with 2 rounds he's not going to be playing and just getting 12 points for. So you only get 2-3 potential games with Zywoo going crazy. And of course, if he does, you're going to still bag yourself a lot of points, but is it worth the risk? That's the problem. And it's not like Vitality you're going to be playing against like 2 or 3 mediocre teams. They're potentially going to be playing against 2 or 3 really good teams, because if Vitality beat whoever's in this, it's going to be Na'Vi or FaZe more than likely. They then have to beat Astralis more than likely, and then they probably have to beat Mouse more than likely, so, or VP. And this is a hard run. So which way do you come down on this one? Well, I said before I'm going to go for a gamble. So I'm going to go for double FaZe and double VP. This is mainly based in the FaZe equation because of the costs actually being very reasonable. So Rain was like 195 to 198k. He always just gets me points. Obviously, I think Monty is a fairly straightforward game for them. So bare minimum, I'm expecting to make some points from that Monty performance. Then I think Na'Vi, very difficult game. It's a coin flip. Again, that's where the risk comes in. But Frozen, he's been just so good for FaZe since he joined this roster. He's been a little bit slower in the last sort of 4 or 5 games. But I think now that the kind of pressure, now that the playoffs are here, FaZe can really rally themselves up. They kind of scraped through and squeaked through in the group stage. They've, again, been talking a lot about burnout and things of that nature. Well, now they've got a chance to rile themselves up for the playoffs, a really important one at that. VP, I went for Flit and Norbert. I did think of going for Flit and maybe Jame, or going for Fame and Jame, but I decided to go for Flit because he's just such a powerhouse player. But also going for more of a budget pick, and Norbert allowed me to go for Frozen and not dip down to like, you know, Rain and Rops, for example. I wanted to go for the heavier firepower of Frozen. I did think about going for Brokey, but decided against it because he was a little bit more expensive than Frozen by a few thousand. And then finally I went for Nafani, who was exactly 176k, which is my remaining budget. And when I was looking through, again, these brackets, I was like, man, BetBoom could beat FlyQuest. Yeah, FlyQuest are a decent team. Maybe it's like a 50-50 game. They may lose, but BetBoom could beat FlyQuest. And then Liquid aren't exactly like the juggernaut powerhouse of bygone eras. You know, like this is a team that is still finding its way, still struggling a little bit. And although this is the second playoff they've reached in a row now, I still haven't seen Liquid really prove to me that they are the real deal. So do I expect BetBoom to beat Liquid? Not necessarily, but I also don't think that if they beat FlyQuest, they're going to get absolutely destroyed. And so therefore, if Nafani at 176k is bagging me like 10 points, 15 points, because eco-friendly on him is actually a pretty solid pick, then that's fine. Like that's a budget player in a nutshell. Now, I will mention that Norbert could be a bit of a problem, right? Like I could get stung with this Norbert pick. The reason I've gone for him is because I expect VP to win multiple games. He is bottom fragging and bottom of the stats consistently now that Electronic's joined the roster. Before Electronic joined, there were a lot of times where Norbert was actually towards the top end of this scale. He's not doing that as much now because I feel like he's going into more supportive roles as I was expecting, and therefore his stats are struggling as a result. But for me, because of his price being around the, I think it was 190-ish K, that felt reasonable for me to go for him and then bolster up the pick with Flit instead. So really, Rain and Norbert are in a similar position for me where it's like, if these two teams are going to win, they're probably going to bag me a fair amount of points in the process, but I'm mainly focusing on these two to be delivering me the big points. It's a huge gamble. I doubt many people are going for the same tactic as me. I think a lot more people will be going for the safer picks of like Vitality or Mouse or whoever. I've decided to roll the dice here and hope for the best. Now, if it works and VP and FaZe meet each other in the finals, I'll be laughing my way to the bank. But I could definitely be making my next video, you know, in the top 90%, and I'm like, oh god, it didn't work. But that's the nature of the beast. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next video, guys. Fingers crossed. I hope that this is going to end up being a genius position rather than a disaster. Guess we'll find out.